Over 4 years ago, I went to work at a warehouse in the small town that I'm from. I decided to leave after my health started to get worse physically, and I was diagnosed with panic disorder and severe anxiety after the situation that I'm about to tell you. This changed the way that I developed friendships after that job, that's for certain. So, I started this job on April Fool's Day of 2018. It was odd to me. And I had no kind of high expectation of the job. All I wanted was to do my job, get paid, and go home, as I had 2 children at home and many things I could work on there. The job wasn't hard, and it made pretty good money for all the duties considered, so I really couldn't complain. I worked second shift for about 5 months, and then I went to the day shift. While working on second shift, I kept to myself mostly until, one day, I met someone from one of the lines after we struck up a conversation about gaming. For the sake of anonymity, we'll name him JF. Well, JF was a pretty good guy, and we had a lot of things in common. I went home that night, and he popped up as a suggested friend on Facebook. Again, another oddity. So, I decided to add him. When I did, we started talking more at work until he suggested that we should hang out. So, we did hang out. Pretty frequently. We were friends for a month at this point, and one day, he decided that he was going to introduce me to his partner. She seemed decent at first, super nice, didn't seem to be a judgmental type, so I was cool with her. From then on, I would hang out with him when my kids were spending time with my mother. One time, we were talking at a restaurant, and he started to vent to me. Dude, she's such a bitch sometimes. The other day, I forgot to take the trash out, and she threatened to stab me if I didn't. I've never been in a relationship where someone threatened me, but he's got good intentions, dude. When he said that to me, I was concerned, but, of course, we had only been friends for a month, so I thought that maybe he was making a morbid joke, so I chuckled at him. He gave me a pretty serious look and said, "I'm not joking. She really did that." That concerned me. Fast forward about 8 months. They're still together, and we all hang out pretty regularly, forgetting the things he told me then. One day, we were all talking, and he seemed a little off that day, so I asked him what was wrong in front of her. He flashed a smirk and said, "Nothing, dude. I'm just a little tired." He didn't have his eyes on me, though. He had them on her when I asked that. When we went to work the next day, I asked him again, "Do you promise to keep this between us?" "Of course," I agreed. He said that he was breaking up with her, and she went a little crazy. He said that she grabbed her gun and pointed it at him and said, "If I can't have you, then no one will." He said that he diffused the situation and is trying to look for a way out. Not really knowing what to say, I just said, "He'll figure it out, man. If you need somewhere to go, then you can come stay with me until you get her out of the house." Fast forward to another year, he finally decided to leave her. When he did, she flipped out again. This time, he told her over text. She said that she was going to find him and kill him, and he was actually out of work that day with a vacation day. He sent me a text that day that said, "Hey, let me know if she comes over to work looking for me." That struck me as odd because I had no idea of the situation that was unfolding. She actually did come to our job, and she asked me where he was, and I said, "I have no clue. I thought he was with you when you guys went out of town or something." I called him and told him that she came by, and he called the police about it. They had found her up the road with a loaded gun in the car. About 2 months later, he decided to talk to her again, and when he did, he had something to tell me. When he called me, he asked if I had seen her around, and I hadn't. He said, "I would take some vacation days if I were you." Dumbfounded, I asked him why. He said to me, "Because she's out of jail, and her cousins are in town trying to find people she had personal vendettas with. You're one of them." At that point, I was terrified. I grabbed my kids and I went out of town. Took 2 weeks off of work. Come to find out, that next day, her and her cousins went to the next town over and shot 3 people in an apartment and killed them. I got the news about it the day after it happened. The reason why he knew they were coming after me is because they made a Facebook Messenger group that he was included in and sent a list of names. Everyone regarded it as spam and decided to disregard the message, but he knew what it was. 3 of the names on that list were the people that they shot. The 4th name on that list was mine. After they found the evidence and he decided to go public about the group and screenshots that he had, they were all charged with first-degree murder. So from then on, I was very careful about who I would stick my neck out for because, even though he knew the context of that list and her intentions, he decided to not inform anyone else on it. Needless to say, we aren't friends anymore, and I dodged a bullet. Literally. I've never told anyone this story, but reading all the stories on here, I feel like I need a post about it. Because of this, I don't go on walks alone or even with friends unless it's in a very public place. But even then, I'm paranoid. With that being said, my friend's family had just moved to a new town 15 minutes from where I lived. It was a complete ghost town, with one tiny grocery store, post office, and a school. This town was so secluded, and I rarely ever saw any cars drive by. One night, as we were unpacking boxes, we heard a knock at the door. It was a big, tall man with a shotgun in his hands. Being from Oklahoma, this could mean you're either meeting your new hick neighbor, or it's actually someone wanting to harm us. Turns out, it was just a hick neighbor coming to introduce himself. He told my friend's mom about the lack of police, and how everyone tends to carry their own guns in order to protect themselves, because the police were usually no help and 15 minutes away. He also talked about how these areas can be dangerous and that my friend's mom should keep a gun with her. At the time, I was 13 years old, and knowing this information, you would think I would simply stay my ass inside and not wander the streets of this dangerous hillbilly ghost town. But I did. There was no service, no cable, and nothing to do but go outside. We would walk to the store and get snacks, walk to the school, and play on the playground. The majority of the time, we wouldn't see a single car or person, but the same clerk in the grocery store on every walk we took. There was a day my dad had brought me to his house, and right off the bat we walked to the park. That day, I was sick to my stomach, but was so eager to go see my friend I went anyways. I had a terrible feeling, and now that I'm older and have experienced bad anxiety, I can now say that day I was experiencing some pretty bad anxiety, and I didn't know why I felt this way. When we got there, we actually ended up hanging out with an old friend who had transferred to the school a year prior. After he left, we sat on the bench for what felt like ages, taking selfies and talking, when all of a sudden, the stereotypical creepy van pulls up to the park. Now, my friend was, and still is, way braver than I was and will ever be, and she was always the daredevil in our friendship. But for some reason, around this time, I just assumed it was a family coming to play, and my anxiety was gone. But my friend was scared. She immediately had a bad feeling when the van pulled up, and I could tell she was ready to leave. But we decided to stay and see who it was before we ran off. Of course, like something out of a movie, out came two big men literally barreling over to where we were. We immediately started to walk away, and they tried to follow and grab us. At this point, we began to run. They got back into the van and followed us. I have no idea how, but they didn't catch up to us, but we ran as fast as we could up the road and straight to the grocery store. I was so horrified when we got inside I could barely speak. That sick feeling I felt on the way to my friend's house made complete sense. My mom was always watching true crime shows growing up, and sometimes she would have me watch with her, so I was always really scared to walk around because of that. But even with that fear, I never thought it would ever happen to me. The van was parked across the street, but eventually drove off. We walked home with no way to call anyone, thinking they could be waiting for us around every corner, with absolutely no one around. It was the scariest day of my life. I didn't tell anyone for years, which was stupid of me. But at 13 years old, I didn't know what to do. I'm turning 21 soon, and this story still keeps me up at night sometimes. Can't help but imagine what would have happened if they captured me and my friend, where we would have gone, and what would have happened to us.